and happy belated Thanksgiving, everybody. This is Attorney Clemson Paris live on Intouch News Radio, reality radio where everybody can be a star. I hope you had a wondrous and happy Thanksgiving. And as usual, as I launch into my therapist session, I guess you go to your therapist. The first thing you need to do is you gotta get some stuff off your chest. So let me just get a couple things off my chest. The first one is that I had been doing really well on a health and healthy eating regimen and exercise plan, barreling into Thanksgiving. I mean, it had been gone really well. I actually was wearing some clothes I hadn't worn in a number of years, and not embarrassed to come out the bathroom with my shirt off. And Thanksgiving happened, and listen, I just want to give my wife credit because she laid it down. I don't know what happened at your house, but as my son said, there was greens, beans, potatoes, tomatoes, you name it, we had it for Thanksgiving. And I just want to congratulate her on a wonderful job, and most importantly, this, y'all. Like I said, I take liberty. My eldest sister, Evelyn Wilson, was the shero of our family and just really guided the Parises on an incredible journey out of a oppressive, backwoods country little town and prosperity here in the thriving metropolis of Tampa, Florida. And we lost her a couple months back. My eldest sister, Evelyn, we talked about it before. But my sister Evelyn, for years, used to make dressing beside my mom. For years, she made dressing beside, and I would just go over and, whatever was happening in my house, I always made a round to get some of that dressing. And so my wife, about 4 or 5 years ago, started going over the day before Thanksgiving and sitting at the knee of my eldest sister Evelyn and making her dressing. And that's how it went for a number of years. And about a year ago, I think it was, maybe been two, on Thanksgiving Eve, my wife didn't go over there. And I said, hey, time out. I said, look, I like my mama's dressing that my sister Evelyn now makes that you go over and get made next to her. And my wife said, well, I got it down pat, honey. I don't need to go over there and make dressing with her. This was the first year, Darryl, my sister's been gone, and she couldn't get on the phone in a pickle and call. And, man, did she pull it off, Darryl. She made the dressing just spectacular fashion. It was just wonderful.
You brought us some, right? We're going to taste it.
There is none left, Darryl. I'm sorry. It was we plowed through it. We plowed through it.
That is very unpilgrim, unpilgrim-like of you.
Listen, I've been eating dressing for every meal for about 9 meals now. I started on Wednesday night. When it first came out, you got to get it ready. But I want to say this. I am so elated that she was thoughtful enough to go learn it, because we have another recipe that she didn't learn, and that was my mama's sweet potato pies. My sisters get cussed at all the time by people because they never learned that recipe. So I want to just congratulate my wife on a wonderful Thanksgiving. We had the family over, Darryl, and it was just a good time. So I am happy to be here. I'm about 6 pounds heavier, but I am happy to be here and all that it brings with me. So anyway, that's my personal privilege I'm taking this morning. And with that being said, I want to welcome Pete to the show. Pete, you there?
Yes, sir, my brother.
Hey, how was your Thanksgiving, Pete?
Low key as always. My baby daughter hosted everybody, and it was, I sat there with my brother-in-law, and we sat like the emperor and the king, because, and I tell you why, as you get older, the joy is when you see all the up-and-coming young people from two or new baby all the way up the line. And you watch them and how they find a way, even if they hadn't met each other but for the first time, how they find a way to make it work.
Yes, yeah.
And so you take notes mentally and everything, and you can even admonish a little bit because it's a training session for some of them. But I enjoyed that. And then, of course, the joke of the week so far has been, as is always this time of year with all the college football games and everything, is that we got all these brothers playing for all these football teams, particularly in the South. But where are the black cheerleaders? They don't even have any red bone black cheerleaders
Red bone, red
on
bone.
these big. They don't even have. Well, Kappas are known to
Ease up,
like red bone.
ease up, Pete.
All right, easy.
Ease up, Pete. Ease up, Pete.
But anyway, but what I'm saying is, seriously, Joe, seriously, how can we continue to support and have our boys go to school who, after they use them in football season or basketball season, and you look at their low graduation work rates, and then you can see as the cameras scan the crowd how some of the white fans still frown on their face because they see a brother with a white girl cheerleader. But we should be frowning because we don't have the same proportion of black women or black males, for that matter, as cheerleaders. Something wrong with that. And I think the problem is, and we'll talk about it in another edition, the problem is the mentality of the black sports players that go to these predominantly white institutions. They got it wrong. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, you know, I'm always baffled, Pete, by your ability to track racial specifics, being such a proud Republican like you are, and the theory, one of the principles of republicanism and that they're espousing now is we're post-racial. Far as the cheerleaders go and the participation, you're right. My wife happens to be the first black female cheerleader over at Central Florida, and that's in the '90s. That's not a long time ago. But you know, it's easy when you can tell what racial demographic people are made out of and identify where there's room to grow. You know, but we'll get into it later on, talking a little bit about you know how some of that is manifesting itself today. You had sent me a note though that you want to talk about the situation with Jerry Jones, and I don't know, Peter, we can just go to Jerry Jones because most people don't have a. Well, I don't want to be presumptuous. What people know or don't know is people need to understand what happened at Little Rock, Arkansas. What is it? Little Rock Central, Pete? Was it Central High?
Yeah.
Little Rock, it was at 50. Right. So the issue was you had Brown versus Board of Education has been passed, been voted on by the Supreme Court, and they've given this edict that change must come with all deliberate speed, which I've still yet to figure out what that means, but hey, they gave it to us. And so we get to Arkansas where their speed is really non-existent. There has been no growth, and you have these various local boards and organizations that are coming up with various strategies to keep African-American kids out of school, be it from zoning or residential area, whatever it may be, various reasons they have been coming up. And so finally you get, I think it's Eisenhower. Help me out, Pete. Dwight D. Eisenhower says, listen, y'all got to let the kids into school, right? And I think it's 9 of those kids, Arkansas 9. He says, look, first day of school, they'll be there, right? They will be at school first day. And the governor of Arkansas, he says, well, my National Guard won't let them in, you know. And Eisenhower said, well, I'm going to send some federal troops over there. And I guess what? I bet you our guns are bigger than theirs. And so that's the scene that we have set where there is literally a threat of violence about these kids going into the school, okay? And standing in the crowd, blocking the door, is who, Pete? Who was standing there?
Jerry Jones, that we know of as the owner, a billionaire owner of the Dallas Cowboys, with a group of other kids, in which he says that he was there for curiosity. But here's the thing, Clint. That was a little bit over 55 years ago.
65.
The Washington,
I think they said 65.
65, right. The Washington Post did a series this week, and somehow or another, they discovered a picture of him back then when he claims that he just went to look. Now, I want to remind our audience that if you play back Stephen A's commentary on First Take from yesterday, he kind of gave Jerry a pass. Well, he was a kid, you know, that's 55 years ago. But part of the argument, 65 years ago, part of the argument the Washington Post notes that in all that time, he's never had a black head coach. He's only had 2 black coordinators. But he points out that outside of his family, the most important guy he's got on his team is a black man who's been with him for a little over 20 years. But now here's the thing to me. He says he didn't know what's going on. That's the first lie. Even though the coach told him they can get in trouble by being too close to the team, obviously he knew what was going on. He knew the history of his granddaddy, and his dad was running for white council leader, that kind of stuff. And so I urge our listeners to really take a look at the in-depthness of that article by the Washington Post. They researched it a lot. And then also his comments, including his comments after the Dallas Cowboy game on Thanksgiving. But here's the real country to me. Why the photo appeared now, even though they were working on the story, but why it appears now? And you got some black people say, well, that was dead. But you know what? When you're 15 years old or 16 years old, you kind of pretty got a good foundation of what you think. And I turn it over to you and see what your thoughts are.
Well, I've been trying to process that because I'll tell you, I am sometimes stunned when I say things to my kids and they say, what are you talking about? And I'll presume that they know that issue or whatnot. But I think by 54, the racial environment is much more charged and complete. It is the story of the day. There is no other world-pressing issue that would have surpassed what was happening in our domestic environment than how we're dealing with race relations, because this was such a dramatic, because it wasn't just at schools. We're talking about, bus stations, water fountains, things like voting rights. It's consuming America as to how it will manifest and deal with this idea that, look, you have to treat all Americans equal, regardless of how they look. And so to say that he might not have been aware, I was talking to, and I've been doing my own personal survey like you do sometimes at the bus stop, Pete. I've been doing my own personal survey with people. And I've asked them, how many political protests against the government have you attended? And how many protests? Not demonstrations, because the demonstration's at the park. A demonstration could be, anywhere. You're just demonstrating how you feel. Yeah. But a protest, in my mind, Pete, is where you try to stop a government action. I'm going to stop the government from building this building. I'm going to stop the government from digging up this tree. I'm going to stop the government from allowing these kids into the school. And so I was asking people, how many of those have you attended? And here's the thing, Pete. It's kind of like people that call radio shows. Very few. Very few regular people have ever gone to an actual protest, because you know what? It could go bad. It could get ugly. Things could be real ugly real quick, and particularly back then. So we have this setting where Jerry Jones, 15-year-old kid, growing up in I would assume, a racially charged community, home environment that's segregated, would not know what's happening at his high school where he plays football. That to me is besides. So whoever his handlers are, they didn't prepare him well. And I think I would have had more respect for Jerry if he had came out and said, it was, I just didn't want things to change. They were like they were. I liked them. I enjoyed them. I didn't understand all the implications. And as a kid, I was just mimicking what I'd been taught. And as I've grown as an adult, the world has changed, and I've changed along with the world to what it is now. But here's what gets him in trouble.
You should have done that.
Here's where he gets in trouble. In the NFL, they have something called the Rooney Rule. And the Rooney Rule was created to force NFL owners to interview minority candidates for head coaching jobs. That's why the Rooney Rule was created, to force owners to interview them. Now, the one dynamic of that is, one, so that you would at least get to see what talent is out there. Two, for these potential head coaches to get the chance to go through the process so they can make themselves more competitive for those jobs. And I'll give you a great example, Tony Dungy. Tony Dungy, he interviewed several times. He's the third choice for the Buccaneers, but without the Rooney Rule and some of the other stuff that they've done since then, and at the time they were doing a courtesy interview. Turns out he blew him away. But the Rooney Rule was designed to force coaches to interview, owners to interview minority candidates. I think it's 2003. Jerry Jones wants to hire Bill Parcells, but he's got the Rooney Rule to deal with, Pete. He's got to deal with this interviewing minority candidates. So he called up Denny Green on the phone. And Denny Green was a black, coordinator at the time. And he said, well, that qualifies as an interview. So Jerry Jones is on the hook, I think, because when there was a moment for him to demonstrate his openness to progress, he circumvented the rules and made it window dressing. Pete, hold on that thought. Don't respond yet, because a DJ CEO wants to talk to me about that dressing as we go to break. But we'll be back in a few minutes. We're going to take a quick break.
All right.
And when we come back on the side, let's finish this conversation about Jerry Jones and what's really going on in Dallas. How about them Cowboys?
Right.
This is Intech News Radio, reality radio, where everybody can be a star. We'll be right back after this message.
Love being number one. When your team's dominating the standings, or your favorite band rocks the charts at number one, it feels good, right? Kind of like how it feels when you have auto insurance with State Farm. Because making you feel like number one is an honor your local State Farm agent takes seriously. Through the good times and not so good, your State Farm agent's proud to be here to help life go right.
Call Herman White at 961-6661. That's 961-6661.
This brutal weather that we experience every year in Florida leaves hundreds of residents needing repairs to their. If your home has been damaged or needs remodeling, leave it to the professionals. Call Reeves Building, Plumbing, and Roofing at 813-238-6197. That's 813-238-6197. Reeves Building, Plumbing, and Roofing have been serving the community for 43 years. Reeves Building, Plumbing, and Roofing is a proud sponsor of Jazz at Miss Connie's house.
By now, we're all aware of the dangers of COVID-19. Like others with existing health issues, cancer patients are at a high risk due to their compromised condition. If you are newly diagnosed with cancer, your care likely can't wait. Moffitt Cancer Center is the best place for your cancer concerns and to provide guidance to help you plan your next steps. We're here for you. Call 1-888-456-2839 or go to moffitt.org/here-for-you.
All right, we're back live on Intech News Radio, reality radio, where everybody can be a star. Listen, while we're on commercial break, my man Bezel slid up in the studio, ready to rock and roll. I probably had some of that osmosis we get from that turkey. Ate a little bit and it held him down, but he is here with us now in studio behind the board, so smooth sailing from here on out. So it's good to see my man Bezel here with us. Pete, I was laying into Jerry a little bit, and you mentioned the Stephen A. on First Take comments. What did you think of what Stephen A. had to say?
Well, I thought it was interesting that he gave him a pass about. Well, actually, he gave Gary credit for a couple things. One of them was correct, and I agree that I give Gary Jones credit to have the courage to not only be interviewed by the Washington Post, gave his explanation, and even to stand up to the reporters after the game on Thursday. Now, Stephen A's position, and of course, you see, we got to factor in a lot of times with these celebrities and all, there's a money issue. It would be the same thing if the radio station or a television station or a newspaper, if you're benefiting in a way from a big time spender or something, make it a win-win or ratings or whatever, then you have to be careful about bothering the hand that feeds you. So I thought Stephen A. gave him a pass on that, but I do congratulate Stephen A. when he talked about the fact that he was not condoning Jerry for not hiring black people and that kind of stuff. Now, what's interesting is that I think we get confused with people like Jerry Jones and other owners and all, and teams and organizations, when you see them come around on Thanksgiving and Christmas and for functionatory days where they give out Christmas gift blankets,
You mean when
food,
they
and
go,
that kind of stuff.
That's called going Nino Brown, I think. Is what it's called. It's called.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You go Nino
so
Brown.
we know a lot of that. We know a lot of that is fake. But at the bottom line, you heard what Jerry say. It's about business. He didn't miss words when he said it was about friendships and all like that. But guess what, Clint? There are circumstances within our own community in which the friendships and some other stuff that occurs that can destroy the potential of other blacks in our community because we stick to who we know.
Pete,
that's just the way it is.
You have politically called people sellouts. I
Well,
mean,
it does
in a
occur.
politically correct way, you've called them sellouts. They sell out for some benefit or personal gain that we may or may not know about.
Well, if you're in the business of making money,
Let's stop right there.
Regardless of-
Hold on. Describe for me what business is not in business to make money. Because I think all of them are in business to make money.
well, that's the crux of the matter.
Right, yes.
You by any means. Now, see, when people review the history of Malcolm X, and when he talked about by any means necessary, a lot of people assumed that he was just focusing on overthrowing the country violently. Now, there was, of course, white people was going to think that, but believe it or not, there were black organizations and people that thought the same thing. But to me, he talked about it from a business perspective, a healing perspective, keeping the family. When you say by any means necessary, then your goal is to keep the ship from sinking.
Yes.
And keep the plane from crashing. So I'm not, with Jared M., it's going to be more that I think what's interesting, sooner or later, it's going to come out how did the Washington Post get pictures like that and zero in on identifying him.
Well, let me tell you, I'm going to tell you one of the things. We just had my undergraduate chapter at Kappa Alpha Psi, the Zeta Chi chapter at the University of South Florida, had its 50th reunion. And one of the things we did was we had everybody send in, your favorite picture from back in the day. And we went through those pictures. And invariably, there were prominent people in those pictures, Pete, that we identified. Now, it could easily be for somebody else who's looking at the picture saying, well, who is that guy right there? And somebody said, oh, let me tell you, that is. I play football with, that's Jerry Jones. I play football with him. And they really, yeah. And this is when I was in the Arkansas protest, and Jerry came with me. They were standing next to me right there in the picture. It's easy, and my question, I'm going to throw this in the mix, because I the one thing is I like the willingness of communicating to folks. You will be held accountable for what you do, and Jerry needs to be accountable for this, and manifesting how it's showing itself in his life and things of that nature. My question though, people, I want to know about all the other people in the picture. What companies are they leading?
It's too late for all of them.
Not all, but some of them, though.
It's too late for all of them.
But I'm going to presume, just like Jerry's still around, there are a prominent number, and this is something that people sometimes, young folks, don't take into consideration. The people who stood and blocked the door 60 years ago still have a lot of control and power over our society. A lot of power.
Absolutely.
And they pull a lot of levers and make a lot of things happen. And who knows where these people are still positioned and anchored in our society and theoretically and symbolically still blocking the door, so to speak. That's one of my things I want to put is I like to have somebody tell me, and who else is in this picture, and who else in a lot of other pictures.
Remember he went to school with Jimmy Johnson back in the day too. Okay.
I think they went to college. They went to college. They played football in college.
Right.
They're roommates actually.
You gotta when you check the stage for a state like Arkansas, I believe you only had 2 HBCUs, if my historical mind is correct. It's Arkansas Pine Bluff, and I believe a little HBCU called Orlando Smith, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so you look at that, and you go outside of Little Rock and Pine Bluff, you didn't have much for blacks unless they lived in Chidesta, Arkansas, or somewhere like that, where the Greyhound bus occurred where he never went. So it's kind of thing. But I think the exposure now is interesting in light of the John Gruden emails and in light of what's going on with Daniel Steiner. But as I tell young people, this is the last stop for those who are in that 85 to 60 range group. They can't stop the diversity in America. They're trying to, and they're doing it a little bit more sophisticated, like with the second coming of Adolf Hitler, like the scientists and some of those folks. Now, people will say to me, well, you're a Republican. But I say to people, remember, Republican in name only does not apply to liberals. Republican in name only also applies to people like Stephen Miller, Donald Trump, that kind of stuff. And I will remind people distinctly that Democrats also have a racist component in them. And in fact, not only that, but they have a gender bias in them that's being exposed more and more. And if we were talking about a local election coming up, you will see how the Democratic racist bias is being used to prohibit qualified black candidates for having a shot at local offices, yet black leaders are jumping on the bandwagon to support these half-closet Democratic racists, and we're jumping on organizing all the organized guys committees and all like that, and forgetting about how some of these same candidates deliberately and openly admitted that they got money to keep other blacks who were just as qualified as them, to keep them from winning the election, and knock out a black male Republican, too, who was highly qualified and would have made the runoff. So it's those kind of issues like that, which leads us into the second thing that I sent you. And that was a story that comes out that talks about the increase, particularly among young people, middle-class young people, and perhaps some blue-collar young people. Black males in particular are going to the Republican Party. You read that, right?
I did read that, Peter. If you can hold that thought for a minute, we can tackle that because we're almost at the time that we got to take a break. Let me ask you this though to finish up the comments, the discussion about Jerry Jones. Should there be any consequences for Jerry Jones from what he did, for him attending that?
No.
Or does this put greater scrutiny on him to increase his minority participation within the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, I think for him, when you look at that organization, when you really go in and look at the organization...
Pete, you only got 30 seconds. You got 30 seconds.
Okay. He has more diversity than a whole lot of football organizations. When you look at the structure.
Oh, boy. You
got to
really,
look at the structure.
See, because people have confused window dressing with real change. We'll come back to that. But people's hitting on this thing, and I'm going to put it in more concise terms in this way. Republicans are getting more black young people to come to their party than Democrats. We're going to talk about that on the other side of the break. You're listening to Intex News Radio, reality radio. Everybody can be a star. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this message.
When it comes to reality radio, everyone is a star.
I know that's right.
On your smooth soul and R&B station. On the Worldwide
Access granted.
In Touch Radio.
Hi, I'm Donald L. Dowridge Jr., your motivational guru. This is the DLD Motivational Moment. You got up this morning. Eyes sneaking open as the feet hit the floor. Got to thank God for the rise this day. The stove perking the smell of nutrition. Get to your destination with planned unselfish acts. Bulletin board read, do you have any to spare? Happiness and understanding. We all have experienced that one phone call, family member, co-worker, friend has passed on. We don't know our last evening or morning. Get up, help someone out. Now walk it out. You got up this morning. This has been the DLD Motivational Moment. You can reach out to DLD at DLD282002 or 813-394-5875.
This is the recipe you've been waiting for. A little bit of smooth mixed with a lot of soul.
A real player.
You're listening to In Touch Radio.
By now, we're all aware of the dangers of COVID-19. Like others with existing health issues, cancer patients are at a high risk due to their compromised condition. If you are newly diagnosed with cancer, your care likely can't wait. Moffitt Cancer Center is the best place for your cancer concerns and to provide guidance to help you plan your next steps. We're here for you. Call 1-888-456-2839 or go to moffitt.org/here for you.
Nestled in the heart of West Tampa, the Maduro Marauder Cigar Lounge offers a wide variety of premium cigars from Esteli, Nicaragua. In addition, the lounge offers a relaxed environment for you to come back, lay, chill, and relax and smoke a great cigar. Visit us at our brick and mortar location, 1944 West Main Street, Tampa, as well as online, www.maduromarauders.com.
It's a beautiful day.
This is Daryl Johnson
And Tampa Bay Tammy.
wishing all our listeners all over the world
Happy holidays.
happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you.
From In Touch News
And radio.
All right, we're back live on Intouch News Radio, man. Listen, I love the operation at Intouch News and radio and the Johnsons. They do such a fabulous job, Pete, giving us this platform. And, so, look, we were drifting into our next topic, Pete. I was literally blown away when I saw that article that you sent me regarding the increase in my African-American voting by Republicans, and how they have recruited. And I don't want to get into, but basically it looks like among young African-Americans, they've doubled their numbers, correct?
I told you that too. I told you and Bezel and DJ, CEO DJ, but I said barbecue and the concert tickets, but he's still a CEO. But anyway.
Yeah, you did. You did mention that. 14% is what it was.
I tell you,
14% of the
and it's gonna get worse. It's gonna get even better for them. Here's why. You have to go. See, we mislead our own community. Black business people, sports stars and stuff like that, that make plenty of money, that are black, they generally trend, even if their registration says Democrat, they generally trend in their thinking as a business-oriented, tax-saving Republican.
Personal
they
interest.
Don't try to hide
personal financial interest, right, Pete?
Right. Okay. Now look at it. What's trending now? If you remember what I said to you, and I pointed out something local to you, black women, particularly elite black women and upper middle class black women, they have basically wrote off or excluded even getting black males involved in being elected to anything, particularly in the South, particularly in Florida, and particularly right here in the Tampa Bay area. You see it in their campaigns and all like that. So brothers are saying, hey, well, if they're going to act like that, what choice do I have? And then they understand the balance of using a voting block in different ways. It's no different than the way we practice it in the South during segregated times and early integration times. People would talk about when Bob Gilder would say, cold fish and hot beer. But there was a strategy behind that because the percentage of voters, just a little percentage, can shift the tide. So when you look at young people now, and you look at particularly the ones that are college, but also the ones that are formulating their own small businesses, they're looking at how they can make or break and even get started.
Like, give me Pete, though. Give me a Republican kind of, I don't know, proposal or platform that is appealing to young black voters. What would you say that would be?
All right. Well, here's the thing. You can talk about, you can go to small business. You can talk about, for the third time around, business enterprise zone. Because, see, that's nothing new. Remember, there was a guy that played for the Buffalo Bills that was a quarterback that was going to run for president. His name was Jack Kemp.
Yes.
K-E-M-P.
Yes.
He put out a proposal for a minority business enterprise zone and all of that, published a book on it way before it shifted to where it is now. Richard Nixon, remind people, Richard Nixon, of all people, hooked up with the Reverend Leon Sullivan
and the Godfather of Soul. Don't leave Jane Brown out.
Right, and the Godfather of Soul. That was a forerunner to what we're seeing now that made the black males look at some of the Republican business aspect. Now, the Trumpeteers and all will call that established Republicans. But the bottom line is when you look at the Republican presidents, they all had that. They all had that component where we can get in and get businesses in the whole bit. Black males have realized, outside of the ones that are elite, have realized that we are being excluded deliberately from politics or elected office, primarily by our sisters. I can give you, give me a minute, I can give you a good example of a local election where we just had it. We had a black woman that they changed the boundaries to help a black woman be elected to a county-wide or district-wide county commission seat. The theme of her campaign was, it's time to elect a second black to the county commission. But you know what was the fallacy and the falsehood of that? 2 times previously, we should have elected, and we had the experience to elect 1, 2, or 3 black males to sit on a county commission seat, including 1, 2 of them county-wide. But you know what the issue was as far as the black sisters was concerned? Oh, he's a preacher. Oh, he's an establishment person. Oh, he's from the city council. He's not polished enough. And so what happened? The last time around, they let a woman who didn't even want to involve blacks in her campaign get elected over over 2 experienced brothers, whether you agree with them on everything or not. Hell, I don't even agree with myself all the time. But they passed that. You see what I'm saying?
Hey,
so
that's
there's the thing.
But listen, having known you for this many years, I can understand that.
Yeah. So, but I mean, see, we need to start teaching our kids to get involved like that more in politics because we lose them.
But
now, I'm not.
Pete, you know what? I always stand my ground on 2 things.
But you mislead people.
I'm not going to join with you on denigrating or even highlighting what our sisters are doing.
It's true. The numbers speak for themselves.
I'm not going to get into that, Pete. I'm going to say this though: is I always. Rarely will I focus on criticizing those who are doing. I would say I put more pressure on those who are not doing. So the brothers need to step it up. And I'm not going to tell sisters to step back so that brothers can step up. I'm not going to say
but they made the proclamation.
You distract you trying
made
to
the
divert my conversation.
proclamation.
See, Pete, we supposed to be talking about what the Republicans are doing. Now you got me talking about what women are doing.
All right, well, here's
I'm not
the
going.
thing.
But
Well,
let me dive into the numbers, because one of the things that article that you gave me, it mentioned that a lot of these people coming to the Republican Party were lesser educated and lower income, and that was, I thought, was very surprising. That was happening. But these numbers, and going deeper into the numbers, they were closer to the numbers that Donald Trump got with black voters, as opposed to someone, and this is not a presidential election, but the question is, will these numbers hold up, and will it keep trending in this direction? Because
they're going to increase. They're going to increase. You know why? Because within our culture, within our community, the people with lower education or lower income, they are beginning to see that those who look like me and you, who's supposed to be understanding of our brothers and sisters' needs that may be below us in income or whatever, they don't come around until it's election time either.
Yeah, but that's that.
And so
that's
people
a farce,
are getting.
that's all. But no candidate.
You really believe that, Clint?
No, I
Clint,
believe
stop
I believe the
protecting those.
I believe the functionality of politics is one that during campaigns you campaign, and I'm looking for, where is this outreach from Republicans to the black community? I don't see them.
It don't have to.
And that's what I'm saying. If they don't have to go out and be on the street and at the bus stops and at the parks and wherever else black folks can be found, how is it that they're getting more black people to come to the Republican Party if they're not doing?
You ever thought about it? It's a protest, Clint.
And
people.
So the psychology of the voter, Pete, normally is I start in the middle where I don't vote because it doesn't matter, right? And then somebody convinces you, no, it does matter. Come with me on my side. Let's say that's the Democrats. They go out and recruit them to vote on their side, right? And so now you're voting Democrat. And then you decide, you know what? I'm disenfranchised. I'm not getting what I want from the Democrats. Usually before a voter moves to the Republican side, they move back to the middle first and become disengaged. And then they re-engage on the other side. I'm just trying to figure out what is it Republicans are communicating and how to black folks. And you're saying that, no, it's a protest vote. Is that what you're saying? A protest vote? Well,
here's the other thing. You can change registration, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you change entirely your thought process. And so, you see, that's what's going on with the number of independent voters. Now, I'm going to tell you something that's what's going to come down probably by 2026.
Go ahead. Pete Stradamus, everybody. Mark the tape. Go ahead, Pete. You got 2 minutes.
2026 or 2028, you're going to see in Florida ranked voting of candidates, just like Alaska and a couple other places. But what is happening, particularly in Florida, and particularly in our own Hillsborough County, there is a silent protest going on by people with lesser income, or let's say not college degree people that are sick and tired of being excluded, even by people that look like us, for the most part, until election time. But people like you will protect those elected officials. You would never call them out. But I'm an equal opportunity person.
Wait a minute, Pete. I'm not protecting people. Yeah, you said it. I heard you. You said it.
I stand by it.
I consider protection as like somebody with a gun, walking in front of the car, waving the crowd back. But I get you. I'm just, I understand. I get it, man. I get it.
Well, you know where else you're gonna see it at? Watch the upcoming city council races.
Okay.
In Tampa.
Okay.
You had established Democrats, instead of trying to broaden the diversity of black people being elected, possibly citywide seats. You had established Democrats, including a couple of them that lost their legislative seats, come in and hijack races where a black candidate, and a particular black woman candidate, might have had a chance to be elected citywide.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't no Republican, and that's the so-called fake liberals, because they understand that as long as they can get black leaders to all of a sudden join their campaign without even checking out the platform of black people who want to run for those seats.
Okay.
What kind of insult to them people?
Yeah.
Now you don't have to.
Well,
but
let me say it this way.
so
when it comes to Republicans and Democrats, I consider them to be like hunters. Some hunters use a bow and arrow. Some hunters use a rifle. But to the deer, the outcome is still the same. Either way, you're just being used for the process. Let's take this last break, Pete. We come back. I got a personal announcement I want to make, and then we'll wrap this thing up. This is In Touch News
What
Radio.
about the concert ticket? If we get any concert ticket?
Hold that thought, Pete. We'll be right back.
In Touch Radio, where you can listen to a cruising flow of smooth soul and jazz, today's R&B, a fun touch of hip-hop and gospel.
All my music on one station.
Giving you a buffet of music, news, and entertainment. We're In Touch Radio.
Hey, this is Agent Wright, better known as Mr. Clean. You looking for some great barbecue? Come see them two brothers in the grill, located at 423 Virginia Street, Charleston, West Virginia. We got ribs, chicken, pulled pork, brisket, collard greens, mac and cheese, baby. Come get some and get you a nice, smooth cigar. 304-550-4431. That is 304-550-4431. Come get some, baby. The Rib Man, mama, the Rib Man.
When it comes to reality radio, everyone is a star.
Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be.
On your smooth soul and R&B station. On the World Wide Web. In Touch Radio.
Call Ricky. Ask Ricky. You need medical or a lawyer? I got the man to do the legwork for you. We tried the other ones before, so believe we hunted down 813-248-6300. Everything gon' be okay. Call Ricky, he coming. He taking care of state of Florida. Grab a pen or sundown. 184-361-RICK. That's 184-361-425. Never word from the point forward, just recline. Just ask Ricky, plus your boy statewide. Just in case you missed it, I'ma tell you one more time. 184-361-RICK. Call Ricky, ask Ricky is a legal medical referral service. The doctors and lawyers in our network are trained in handling auto injury claims and giving you the best medical treatment and recovery. Dial 1-844-361-RICK. That's 1-844-361-7425. Ricky. Ask Ricky.
All right, we're back live on In Touch News Radio, reality radio. Everybody can be a star. Pete, I want to apologize to you. I was so rude. I didn't even ask you about the Classic, and if you made it down to Orlando for FAMU, Bethune-Cookman last week.
No, man, I didn't go. I watched them on TV.
Okay.
I could tell you, no matter what FAMU did, they could have went 10-1 or whatever, because they should have beat North Carolina. Okay, but historically, the NCAA does not like to really give at-large bids to black schools. They'll come with the strength of the schedule, the whole bit. They'll have in a predominantly totally white conference a team that might be 7-5, 7-4, make the playoff. And their excuse all the time is that strength of schedule, the whole bit. Now, what they don't tell you is that you got a lot of those conferences, predominantly white conferences, that have an option when they have the independent, when they can have an independent team on their schedule. They won't sign up with black schools. And you know why? Because they can't get money as much as if they sign up with a predominantly white school. Okay,
it's a money game.
And this is what Deion Sanders talked about. If you had somebody playing FAMU that was out of the Colonial Conference or out of the Ohio Valley Conference, other than Tennessee State, because that's the only black school in the Ohio Valley Conference, and FAMU beat them and all, that would be something different. But FAMU, they don't play. Now, keep this in mind, too. The black schools, primarily outside of the conference, have tried to keep traditional schedules like with Albany State and stuff like that.
Right.
But they're not going to never make it in there. And people say, well, they need to look at the committee. Well, of course, the committee's going to have a couple of blacks on there, but that doesn't mean anything because it's a majority vote. And I think if they come back next year, you're going to see that. Now, we could take like Hampton and A&T what did it happen in A&T do? They joined a predominantly white conference. Remember that?
Yes.
So they okay, and I think A&T had a chance to win that conference this year, but they lost to Gardner Webb. So it's a money thing, and it's because civil rights organizations, they don't look at the effects of that kind of stuff. They generally leave that alone. They generally leave a lot of stuff. When you look at where we're going, and that's why our influence is being demised and everything, even our voting block is being ignored in a lot of places in the South and everywhere else, is because we don't influence anybody in a coalition anymore. In fact, it is getting so bad in sports and everything else. We're getting like Hollywood. We don't influence anybody. And so consequently, if you are a candidate running, even if it's sports or whatever, conference commission or whatever, why pay attention to the black community or the black leadership? Because we're out on the island by ourselves. Even Asians are passing us and paying attention to things. And if you don't think it's so, whether it's sports, all you got to do is wait till the Supreme Court comes up and they talk about admission, where the Asian community has sued Harvard and those kind of places. But as far as the classic, one thing I did enjoy, the wholesome family atmosphere, seeing it on Facebook about the Ballad of Band and a number of things. But here's the thing, Clint. Remember, in Orlando, Disney used to be a main supporter of the Florida Classic.
Correct.
But what they could have paid them, they wouldn't pay them. So the schools took over. But you have to ask yourself, they had 55,000 people at that game.
Yeah.
Approximately 75% of them were from out of town, at least. But did the schools really benefit from it? And so what we're going to find out in the next 10 years or so, with the major conferences like the SWAC and the MEAC and all, you're going to, outside of the SWAC, you're probably going to see the collapse of the MEAC, and those schools are going to go try to get invited to predominantly white conferences, and then that may make a difference. But otherwise than that, it's going to be the same old, because you take out Jackson State, and you take out maybe Alabama State or something. Do you know black schools don't really support the black sports scene, especially in football? They don't attend like they should attend. Even with FAMU, they won't do that unless it's a big game.
Well, that's in any program. I know I'm an alumni of the University of South Florida, and we don't have the legacy of tenure that some schools have with their sports programs. But across the board, those sports programs do not get good support. And the basketball team, the women's basketball team in particular, is a perennial competitive team making a tournament each year, and it still doesn't have a draw and a following to it. So,
well, that's easy. You know why? Because you take South Florida for an example. They don't really spend money in their athletic budget to promote sports with black media.
Well, you have to build a connectivity.
Well, they don't do it, and that's a public institution. But when you look at what they spend with black media, it's minuscule.
Well, that's across the board. And we can have a whole show. Yeah. We can have a whole show on how they deal with their spending out there, but that is well documented and continuous pressures being trying to play. But that's anywhere that you go. I'm just happy to say that no crazy stories came out of the FAMU Bethune Classic. Everybody I know that went to the events had a wonderful time, were excited, and came back, thrilled that we have this in our community to celebrate and be a part of. Pete, listen, as always, we've had
one more thing before you go, Clint. Yes. One more thing before you go. Herschel Walker will win. Herschel Walker.
Herschel's down by 4 points. What do you mean he's going to win, Pete?
He's going to win because the polls, people lie with polls all the time, but it's what happens when you get in the vote booth. But I think you're going to see a double-digit at least. I would not be surprised when the final numbers come out. You will find at least 18 to 25% black men voted for Herschel Walker, not because of his Heisman Trophy and all that other foolishness, and irregardless of his dumbness too, but it's a protest vote, and it's going to send shockwaves to people. Why the brothers going that way? Well, there's a reason, particularly among the young group, why they're going that way besides economics. It's a protest vote that sends a message out. Don't overlook us, as we know the sisters have a pretty good percentage, and we know the sisters can think properly and all like that. But when you totally exclude non-degree brothers and low-income brothers, that is a mistake. And that's why when you see other black...
I disagree.
All right, well, you run from it. You run from it, but I told you...
You got ribs on me, Pete. If that can take him... If he can, I am almost already doing my victory dance. I'm going to call it the war knock.
I challenge the CEO.
It's called the war knock.
Ask the CEO. Ask him to pray hard about it and see if he has courage enough to do a two-part editorial.
DJ CEO is not a shaman. He can't, he can't make it.
Wait, no.
Do a holy dance.
If he has courage enough, no, I want him to do a two-part editorial from his standpoint in the next two editions of the fabulous newspaper, In Touch News, and do a two-part editorial. Is it a myth or is it a reality that black men are being excluded?
Or they're not participating. No, nobody's pushing them out, Pete. Hey, nah, bro. You want to dance, you got to go ask. You can't go outside the club and complain about a dance with you. You got to get out on the floor.
I read his editorial.
And listen, all right. So
I challenge him.
2 points of personal privilege. One, I want to say that unfortunately.
All right.
My uncle down in Miami passed away this week. My uncle Clarence Dunn. Named after my grandfather, Clarence Dunn. Unfortunately, passed away over the weekend, and the Paris family is in mourning with the Dunns down there. And as the week before, I was up celebrating with his sister, who turned 100. So they get up in age on that side of the family. But I want to give my thoughts and prayers to the family down in Miami. Listen, I'm going to roll in there on Friday night, and we're going to do it, do it how we do it and celebrate a wonderful life. Also want to let everybody know, listen there, my son, Temperance Coleman Paris, will be graduating on December the 9th from Florida State University. Hence, I am wearing my Florida State attire. I got a couple text messages from people saying, well, why are you wearing Florida State gear this morning on the show? One, they've got my tuition money. And two, my son is graduating. 3.5 years, major in psychology. My 2 minors, one in early education and youth development. I'm just so proud of him and what he's done. Good young man.
That's great.
And, sharp cat. And, man, just the whole world is in front of him. So we getting our money's worth out of him up there.
Get your money back. I also heard the good news about him, Clint, that he played Alpha or Omega.
Hey, man, watch your mouth, man. Watch your mouth. That would not be good news. Listen, everybody, as always, man, we really appreciate everybody getting up.
I want to see that editorial.
Yeah, that would be an announcement, Pete. Yeah, right.
The truth will set you free, bro.
Right. We want to thank everybody for getting up early on a Saturday morning, tuning in to In Touch News. Listen, as you all know, we have a full suite of entertainment on the station and information to keep you plugged in 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Stay with the station, stay with us, and listen, we will always deliver for you the best opinions that we can have. I hope everybody have a safe and happy rest of your weekend. Pete, thank you for getting up and being with us. And,
What about the concert tickets?
We're going to stay by the phone. We'll give you a call as soon as we have some information to share with you, Pete. Hang in there, my brother. Everybody have a great weekend.
All right.
We'll be back next week.
All right.
Take care, y'all.
Wow.